Michigan tops Washington to win CFP National Championship.
Houston, Texas. In the end, the "Michigan versus everybody" mantra that inspired the Wolverines all season long was quite fitting. The Wolverines did indeed square off against everybody, from the NCAA to its own Big Ten Conference to the number 2 team in the nation on Monday night on college football's greatest stage. On and off the field, Michigan refused to let any opponent, any NCAA investigation, or any of the 6 games its head coach was suspended for get in its way of winning a national title. And on Monday night, when it mattered the most, number 1 Michigan did it again, beating number 2 Washington 34-13 before an announced crowd of 72,808 at NRG Stadium to earn the school's first national championship since 1997, when it shared the honor with Nebraska. The Wolverines asserted themselves from the opening kickoff and never trailed against the Huskies, 14-1. "I feel like this has been the perfect happy ending," said running back Donovan Edwards, who averaged an astounding 17.3 yards per carry, and finished with 103 yards and 2 touchdowns. "A lot of personal success, a lot of personal failures, but our ultimate goal was to win a national championship. There's no other feeling than to go through what we have and still come out on top. So perfect story, a lot of adversity. Coach Harbaugh's not there for 6 games. Perfect story." Michigan's national title will always be entangled with what was the biggest story in college football this year: allegations of a widespread sign-stealing scheme allegedly led by former staff member Connor Stalions, who resigned November 4. As polarizing as the program has been nationally, though, those within it have only been galvanized by the controversy and accusations. "It fueled us," Michigan defensive tackle Mason Graham said. "It fueled us. So is its head coach." After the confetti had fallen, Harbaugh found his parents on the field and first wrapped his 84-year-old father, a spitting image of himself, in a bear hug, lifting him up off the ground. He turned to his mother and did the same, planting a kiss on her, and saying, "We did it. For me personally, I can now sit at the big person's table in the family," said Harbaugh, a former Michigan quarterback in his 9th season coaching his alma mater. "For me personally, I can now sit at the big person's table in the family." In what was the first CFP national championship game appearance for both programs, Michigan became the 6th team in major college football history to finish 15-0 or better in a season and set the Big Ten's record for the most wins in a season. The Wolverines did it the old-school way, with a relentless running game that racked up 303 yards, and a stifling defense that flustered Heisman runner-up quarterback Michael Penix Jr. into 2 interceptions. Michigan jumped out to a 14-3 first-quarter lead, but Washington responded with a 3-yard touchdown from Penix to Jalen McMillian that sent the Huskies to the locker room trailing 17-10. That was the only touchdown, though, they would score. "They're a good team," Penix said. "They're a good team." Michigan had all of the pieces in place for the perfect season, starting with a veteran quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, who wasn't flashy, but won the turnover battle against Penix. Michigan had the burly offensive line that won the battle up front and paved the way for a dynamic duo at running back in Blake Corum and Edwards. They each ran for over 100 yards and together accounted for 4 touchdowns. Corum, who missed last year's CFP with a knee injury, was named the game's offensive MVP after totaling 134 yards and 2 touchdowns on 2 carries. Michigan also had the stingy defense that flustered Penix Jr. all night, making it far more difficult for the Huskies to have success in the deep passing game, or any real passing game at all.
Penix completed just 27 of 51 pass attempts, 53%, for 255
yards and a touchdown. "That was a spectacular game by our defense," Harbaugh said. "This was arguably the most talented Michigan team in decades. One that built its success on not only a senior-laden roster, but also discipline, rarely racking up penalties and turnovers. It wasn't, though, without its flaws. There was the NCAA investigation into alleged recruiting violations during the 2020 season. A separate NCAA investigation into a widespread sign-stealing scheme. Harbaugh's 3-game suspension to open the season, and another 3-game suspension to end the season, the latter which was imposed by the Big Ten for violating the league's sportsmanship policy by illegally going off campus to steal signs. Michigan's motivation extended beyond that, though, back to the Fiesta Bowl loss to TCU, the program's second straight CFP semifinal loss. "I'd say we came a long way, but in order to accomplish things like this, you've got to go to those dark places where everything's not great," McCarthy said. "I'd say we came a long way, but in order to accomplish things like this, you've got to go to those dark places where everything's not great." With Harbaugh sidelined for the final 3 games of the regular season, offensive coordinator Sharon Moore led the Wolverines to critical wins against Penn State, Maryland and Ohio State. When asked what the phrase, "Michigan versus everybody," mean to him, Moore said Michigan versus everybody. With Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti watching from a suite with Big Ten staff, Big Ten Network staff and guests, Michigan did what it has done all season in spite of the controversy: it outplayed its opponent. Michigan averaged a whopping 19.3 yards per carry in the first quarter. The Wolverines won the battle up front and created confusion for Washington's defense. Michigan had 4 plays of at least 35 yards, and the Huskies' defense allowed 209 rushing yards in the first half, the most the program has allowed in a half since 2011. Washington went to its locker room at halftime trailing 17-3, its biggest deficit of the season. There were also some uncharacteristic drops and some errant throws. With 10:27 remaining in the first half, Rome Odunze, one of the top receivers in the country, was wide open and within scoring range when Penix Jr. overthrew him on a daring 4th and 7, a play the Huskies desperately needed to swing the momentum. At one point in the fourth quarter, he had completed just 26.7% of his passes thrown at least 5 yards, 4 of 15, and had thrown 1 interception. With 4:29 left in the game, he threw another one, and Mike Sainristil ran it back 81 yards to Washington's 8-yard line. The play set up Corum's touchdown that sealed the win and put the Wolverines ahead 34-13. It was the second time in the second half a touchdown by Corum provided some separation. With 7:09 left in the game, Corum ran 12 yards for a touchdown that put the Wolverines ahead 27-13. It was a Hollywood ending for Corum, who lead the FBS with 27 total touchdowns and is unlikely to return next season. He has now had a rushing touchdown in 15 straight games, the longest streak by a Michigan player in the past 20 seasons. "Coaches always say, playmakers make plays, and don't wait on anyone else to make a play," Corum said. "Coaches always say, playmakers make plays, and don't wait on anyone else to make a play." McCarthy only completed 10 of 18 passes because he didn't have to be a hero in the air with so much success on the ground. As McCarthy left the locker room after the game to go to the post-game press conference, he exhaled. "Oh man," he said, "we did it. Against everybody."
Thanks for watching NY Sports News. Stay tuned for more updates.